This video provides information for case study number 4, where you were distinguished between disparate treatment and disparate impact. All right, so let's talk a little bit about disparate impact and disparate treatment before we look at the assignment. Both disparate impact and disparate treatment refer to discriminatory practices. So let's be clear, it's discrimination. Disparate impact is unintentional discrimination, whereas disparate treatment is intentional. Let's talk a little bit about disparate impact. So when disparate impact occurs, it occurs when policies or procedures or perhaps rules within the organization appear to be neutral, but actually result in an unintentional discrimination. Let me give you an example. Say that you test all of your job applicants across the board, so that way you're not discriminating against your job applicants. Everybody gets the same test, but you're testing them on their reaction times. And only people with the highest reaction time are hired. So this test will actually discriminate against older workers who are less likely to have fast reaction times. Now, this isn't me talking, this is science, and this is actually an example that the EEOC provides. So you're actually providing a test that inadvertently discriminates against older individuals. Now, I will caveat that with the following statement. There are times when disparate impact is legal. You can absolutely have disparate impact in your test as long as it's for a bona fide reason. So if an employer has a legitimate, necessary, job-related reason for applying its procedures, then it's allowed to do so. So when you think about reaction times, think about the military or police or fire or airline pilots or something that requires a quick reaction time. Right. So some disparate testing practices are legal with some jobs, again, as long as it's warranted and as long as it's a bona fide reason. Let's talk a little bit about disparate treatment. Disparate treatment, on the other hand, is intentional employment discrimination. For example, testing a particular skill of only a certain minority or a certain group, meaning you're treating one group of people differently than you are out of the whole group. So for instance, if you only test female applicants to make sure that they have a particular skill set, but you don't test everybody else, or you only give an English assessment to those applicants whom the employer may think English isn't their first language, you're treating that group of people differently than everyone else. Well, guess what? That is discrimination. And it's not only discrimination, but it's disparate treatment because you're treating them differently. So we know that the federal law prohibits job discrimination based on, are you ready for it? Race, color, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, national origin, religion, age, military status, equal pay, pregnancy, disability, or genetic information. So we know that it's illegal. All right, and that's where disparate treatment and disparate impact come into play. Again, disparate treatment is treating one of those groups differently than the rest, and disparate impact is unintentionally treating them different than the rest. Let's go ahead and look at your assignment. This is what I was looking for. The first things first, the uniform guidelines and employee selection procedures. So as long as you defined disparate treatment, you gave an example, and then provided instructions for hiring agents, you will receive full credit. So where one can lose credit is if you didn't give an example or you didn't provide instructions as discussed. And same thing with number 2, you were to explain disparate impact, discussed how the EOC tests for that, and provide a detailed plan. So any of those 3 that are missing will result in a point deduction. I do want to go ahead and wrap up this video talking about the future of testing and what we've really seen in the past few years. Many of organizations have actually gone away from in-house testing, and instead they require their candidates to have certain certifications. So for instance, look at HR for a minute. Many companies forego that in-house testing of HR knowledge because they don't want to be guilty of disparate impact. So what they do instead is they require a candidate to have a certification. So in the HR world, that certification is a PHR. An APHR PHR, SPHR, a GPHR, one of the PHRs, or a SHRM certification as well. And so they take that burden away from them. That way they don't have to test their HR knowledge, and they won't get in trouble for having a test that might have disparate impact. They put that burden over on the vendors that provide those certifications, and it's cleaner that way. And it's not only for HR, but a lot of companies, or a lot of positions, I should say, do that as well for IT, project management. There's a slew of different certifications out there. I will say that most companies are going away from in-house testing unless it truly is a bona fide reason to have that test. Now, there could be, again, like I mentioned earlier with the reaction times, absolutely, but making sure that your pre-employment tests are valid and there's a reason for them. Many organizations have also gone away from personality tests. I remember in the 90s, I always seemed to be taking personality tests when I was applying for jobs. Now that's not the case, because personality is not indicative to job performance. There are lots of different personalities, especially if you look at the Myers-Briggs. You can have, I happen to be I think I'm an ISTJ. I know I'm an I, and I know I'm a J. I think I'm an ISTJ. I forget now. But let's just pretend for a second that I'm an ISTJ. Well, you can have two ISTJs, and one could be successful and one cannot. So there's no reason to have these personality tests because they're not predictive to job performance, if that makes sense. All right, if you have any questions, please reach out and have a great week. Thanks so much.